Welcome back to the channel. Here I am in Mallorca, and if you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen that last weekend I did Ironman Alcudia 70.3. Very awesome race, but in this video I want to talk to you over how it went for me, and I also got to use some of these cool things, which are ketones. If you don't know what ketones are, they're basically a fourth fuel source, and I'll link to my video describing what they are down below. Definitely worth a watch. There are also a few other things that I want to discuss in this video, and I want to know if you guys have had the same experiences as well. I think with any triathlon video, you just got to do it in the order swim, bike, run. So let's kick it off with how the swim went. Right, so the swim. It's a really nice swim out there in the Bay of Alcudia and Port Alcudia. And thankfully, even though there's 3,800 participants, the water actually stayed nice and clear, so you can still see the bottom, which really makes a massive difference when you're getting out of the water, makes you a lot less dizzy. I averaged 1 minute 29 pace, which for my swimming background isn't bad. I never really push it on the swims, I just kind of sit at a cruisable speed and just hold pace normally. That's exactly what I did here as well. One thing I did notice is there's a few categories that you can put yourself into. There's the 20 to 25 minute category, and I put myself in the 25 to 30 minute category. To be quite frank, I should have just pushed my way right to the front of that category and just been a bit of a bully from the start, because I gotta be honest, I didn't get overtaken once, I only overtook from that position, and I did a bang on 28-minute swim. Is this just like a normal thing at Ironman events where people kind of rate themselves one position higher in the swim? Is that normal? I don't mind admitting here, I was a bully in the water. Like, I got my elbows out. If you were in my way, you knew about it, because you're in the wrong category. If you can't swim 25 to 30 minutes, then don't go in that category. So I think I had every right to push people out of my way in that scenario. I don't really notice any performance gains on the swim from the ketones. It's a very technique-based area, and that's where I thrive at, coming from a sprint swimming background. So everything just felt normal there. Coming into transition one, it's a very, very long transition because there's so many people, but nothing spectacular. Just get your stuff, bike stuff on and head out. On the bike, it's probably one of the best courses I reckon here. You climb up along the flats along the front of the bay, you climb up Col de Femenia, and then down the other side, beautiful. And then it's mostly flat on the way home. I cruised my way up to the climb. I was just slowly overtaking people. I never really pushed it. When I got to the climb, however, I was the one being overtaken. People were absolutely smashing it up this climb. And I just kind of sat at my level. I just stayed at 250 watts. I didn't go above it. I know I would build lactate above that. A half Ironman is still hell of a long race. So after letting everyone overtake me, you come back down the other side, and that's when the flats start. And I just kind of held anywhere between 200 to 225 watts here, just held pace, and almost every single person that I saw overtake me on the uphill, I overtook them again on the flat, sorry. Just one at a time, just bang, 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 just nailing everyone. And I think it's because too many people went too hard on the uphill. And you can see that on my speed here. Like, the last two sectors or two quarters, I really held a much higher average speed than most other people. One thing I'd love to talk about though is, once again, do you guys have this experience when doing Ironmans? Just how many people are drafting. On the way back, on the flats, it just felt like I was overtaking group after group after group, and they just stayed together the whole time. And you know, because it's flat, you can see them. You can see they're cycling together for at least 4 to 5 minutes. You come past them, then you see the next group of people. I don't mind it when people group up a little bit naturally on the uphills and the downhills, like drafting doesn't affect too much there. And sometimes when you're coming into transition as well, those last 2Ks, you're going to naturally bunch up a little bit. But for the rest of it, along the flats, it's terrible. And I just didn't see anyone get a penalty for it. So that really frustrated me. On the other hand though, I can say I'm pretty proud of the speed that I averaged over that climbing and that distance, and I can happily say that I did that on my own. I did actually get very lucky on the bike here at one point, as basically we were coming downhill, going straight onto this next flat section. I was a few meters behind one guy, and literally at that moment, in my brain, I said, I'm drafting here. So I slowly pulled back, and about 10 seconds later, when I had my distance, his front wheel slipped out from underneath him and he slid. We were going about 45 k's an hour. He slid. And to be honest, if I was drafting, I would have hit into him and I would have gone over as well. Thankfully for him, he literally slid right next to some marshals and stuff. So Also, thankfully for me, it didn't mean I need to stop. I could see them come over right away and help them out. And luckily, I didn't get involved in the crash either. The speed was good though, especially for me. I averaged just over 34 k's an hour. I averaged 207 watts, and because there's a climb and lots of descending in there, my normalized power was like 224 watts. Not bad over 2 hours and 40 minutes, especially for someone like myself. As if you've seen other videos in this channel, you know I have quite a low VO2 max of 51. Coming into transition number 2, that's when I then had my second shot of the Delta G Tactical. To be honest, they're hard to get in, so I had to chase it with some electrolyte drink afterwards because it does not taste good. But for me, on the run is actually where I started to notice the benefits of having ketones. If you watch my previous video, I talk about how the studies just aren't long enough to really test the benefits of ketones. But when you get up to that half Ironman distance, that's when it really starts to show itself. For most of the run, I was actually sitting at like 165 beats a minute, and that's usually about 10 beats a minute lower than what I'd normally sit at for the same pace when I'm that tired in an event. And as it was a 3-lap race, I took it fairly comfortably for the first 2 laps and just decided to open up on the last lap. The run for me, I'm not a strong runner at all. It's never fun, but I gotta say the ketones made it easier. I also found that in the previous video, I spoke about I didn't really feel the cognitive benefits of ketones, but when running, I think, or it felt like I noticed that I was able to think more about my situation, how I'm doing with my pacing, how my technique was when I was running, and I was doing a lot of thinking about how fast I was going. I wanted to break the 2-hour mark for that half marathon, and I found on that last lap, I was kind of doing the maths in my head. I was like, okay, if I run at 5:30 pace for a 2K, and then I could bring that up to 5:20, and then bring that up to 5:10, and I was just doing the maths in my head, and normally I can't do that. I'm just so tired, I'm just working hard. But this time it felt like I actually could. So I think when you are tired, the cognitive benefits from ketones do actually help a little bit now. Then finally, to finish the race off, because I am a sprinter, I'm much more of a power athlete than I am an endurance athlete. A few guys overtook me right towards the end, and along the finishing straight, I just had to do them all in because I was annoyed all of them overtook me. So I had a really good sprint finish, but I felt it after that. So there it was. That was my race. It was one of the races that I felt I paced it perfectly throughout the whole event. I don't think I could have gone any quicker. And using ketones themselves, I do think genuinely benefited me, as I'm a very carbohydrate heavy user. This meant potentially there was less lactate in the build-up in the bloodstream, meaning I could go harder for longer. As I said before, if you want more details about that kind of stuff, then my previous video on ketones goes into all of that. I also want to know from you guys though, have you had the same experiences as me? Because there were some things that I was very frustrated with in there. Like I said, the swim, people said they're faster than they were, and the bike, far too many people cheated. I do also have a video on my bike setup and my brother's bike setup, so if you want to have a look at those, I'm going to link them down below as well, just to see how I set up my bike for triathlon. Finally, doing it with my brother, I got to watch him come over the line, which was awesome, feels really good, and you have a good hug with your friends and family afterwards. Well everyone, that's how it went for me. If you have any questions, feel free to put them down below. You can also find me on Instagram over here, where if you want to message me privately. I've been Jason, this has been Cycling Unboxed. See ya in the next video.